for he's a jolly good fellow. Now, Charlie, is this the best birthday ever for you, receiving the Emmy nominations, or are you feeling much older?
Is it possible for both? Uh, but then again, I always feel old. But this has been a good batch of nominations. It was really interesting to go through and see a lot of stuff that I liked personally. I like seeing BoJack get in for an animated program, Maya Rudolph get in for voiceover, but a bunch of nominations for Succession, which we were worried about. We did not know how the acting branch specifically was going to take to the show, and boy howdy did they take to it. They gave it more than I ever thought they would get in, including Cousin Greg, which is always a good thing for him.
Now, a few years ago, the Television Academy realized that there was not really any reason to announce the nominations at 5:30 a.m. local time. But Matt, you have been left behind because it is 6 a.m. in Australia where you are. So how are you feeling about the nominations this morning? Have you even
Well,
seen them?
I have seen them. Yes, I sort of like had my alarm set, got up at 1:30 a.m., sort of stayed in bed, watched them, and then went back to sleep. So they're still marinating. They're still processing. Like, look, I'll talk about what I liked about them and what I thought was really great about them before I, but probably at some point talk about the things that I'm disappointed by or upset with. And that's just some of the sort of nice surprises that we saw this morning. What We Do in the Shadows getting in for Best Comedy Series. What a lovely sort of unexpected comedy that just is so quirky and brilliant and could have easily gotten lost in the shuffle. Was able to break through and not just in comedy series, but I get some writing nominations as well. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was maybe going to be one of the big blunders, them submitting 3 episodes in writing, since it seemed like they were just on the cusp. Not the case at all. They got all 3 nominated, while The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel submits 2, can't get either of them nominated. Luca, I've held off coming to you because I didn't want to open on a downer. But how are you feeling about these nominations?
Well, I mean, even though on the whole I'm probably more disappointed than I am satisfied, I still think there's a lot of great stuff to talk about. I think what is very, I mean, for months now I've been saying that because of the circumstances this year, with the pandemic and with everything around George Floyd's death, I knew that the nominations were not going to be like they were in the last few years. There was going to be, but we assumed that voters were probably at home watching television. So I always had a feeling that we wouldn't be able to predict them this year, but I did not expect this. I mean, the surprise between What We Do in the Shadows in comedy series, The Mandalorian in drama series is just insane. I'm very disappointed that people like the 2 unbelievable leading ladies couldn't get in, and Viola Davis, and The Handmaid's Tale had a very strange performance. So there are a lot of things I'm disappointed about, but they seem to have spread their wings, the TV Academy, and I think that's something that is very noteworthy. So let's see how it continues in the following 3 years.
Yeah, we definitely saw different nominations that were affected by external factors this year. I mean, there was that call to support Black art, and we certainly see tons of Black actors nominated this year, more than usual. We also had the quarantine this year, which seemed to allow people to sample shows they might not normally, like Unorthodox and Normal People did better than I would expect in a normal year. On the other hand, these nominations overall, though, I'm kind of, I don't know. Like, there's some weird stuff. Like, I said to Charlie about how the Mrs. America supporting actress situation, where they snubbed Sarah Paulson and Rose Byrne, and those were both scenarios that I knew were possible. Because Sarah Paulson's episode is at the end, Rose Byrne's performance is a bit more divisive, even if it has its passionate supporters. But for the Academy not to choose a side and just to go with neither of them, like, I don't know who wins in that scenario. I'm not talking who wins the Emmy. I just mean, as like fans of the Emmys, I would have liked to have rooted for one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, in general, just Mrs. America, how it performed overall, it didn't get in John Slattery, which I thought was shocking because I thought he would benefit from being the only male in a female cast. Usually that helps a lot of people. I believe it didn't get into directing, right?
It did not
So
get
that
into
was
directing.
it did not get into directing. I mean, it submitted a whole lot of episodes, which is never a good idea, but that really surprised me.
Unless
But
you're what we
just in
do in the
general,
shadows.
or if that's true. So it seems to work. And what we saw throughout the night is sometimes we had shows get nominated, but then their lead performers or performers we thought would get in were snubbed, or we had performers get in, but then their shows didn't make it. So it's just all very confusing, especially with something like Mrs. America, where I thought that Rose Byrne and Sarah Paulson were actually the safest. Because Sarah Paulson had that standout episode, and because Rose Byrne was, some people called her a co-lead. I don't know if I agree with that, but she did have the most screen time and played an iconic character. So I'm very surprised here.
Yeah, the Rose Byrne snub did not surprise me as much because I wasn't predicting her to get in. I thought that the nature of how the character was written would make her performance more easily overshadowed by characters that had more standout performances, like the three that ended up getting in for supporting actress: Margot Martindale, Uzo Aduba, and Tracy Ullman.
Yeah, and then over on the supporting actor side, you know, we've got three people from Watchmen. We've got Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Giovanna Depo, and Louis Gossett Jr. They're all in, but Tim Blake Nelson, who I think was considered the standout, is not nominated. And then for Hollywood, we've got Dylan McDermott and Jim Parsons in. And again, you know, good performances, but the kind of consensus standout online, Joe Mantello, left off.
Yeah, that was strange.
And
in the supporting actress race, you have Holland Taylor getting in, but not Patti LuPone, which is very strange to me.
And no Sarah Paulson. So that would have been, you know, a fun thing to have both of them together. But no.
In the end, I just decided, with Watchmen, I decided to just predict all four supporting actors because I simply couldn't choose which one of them would be able to get in. I had a feeling it would be three, but I didn't know which three. I would have never thought that Tim Blake Nelson would be the one to miss. I always thought Giovanna Depo was probably the most vulnerable because he's only in 1.5 episodes, but this is very surprising. But what we see in both categories is that these shows where we always thought it could get, you know, 4 slots only ended up getting 3. So maybe that's something we have to look to in the following years, especially since very few shows ever get 4.
Matt, what do you think about these categories, or are you hoping to change the subject?
I think you guys spent enough time talking about these categories, but yeah, no, it's just an eclectic, like an interesting group of which actors got nominated from which shows.
Yeah. And what are you happy that you called in your predictions?
I don't know. I can't remember what I predicted, to be honest, Riley.
Okay, Charlie?
For me, it was probably the Rose Byrne getting unfortunately snubbed. I did call that one, and I was also very proud that I called What We Do in the Shadows getting in for comedy series. As I was, I was agonizing about so many of those slots, below those last 4 slots of comedy series. I really had no idea with some of them, but from the time we opened the prediction center, I was looking at What We Do in the Shadows, and it just felt like it just had that right mix of timing, critical acclaim, passionate fan support. And material, and originating from an a now Oscar-winning writer-director. I was very proud of myself for that, and I will not shut up about it for at least several months.
All right. Well, maybe this will be your last Slugfest then. Luca, what are you proud of predicting?
Well, I don't know if I'm that proud, but I did put Maya Rudolph in twice in comedy guest actress, because first of all, I didn't know what to do after the first four or first three. And then I looked at the ballot, and then I realized you have Maya Rudolph for The Good Place, and then you have Maya Rudolph for Saturday Night Live as Kamala Harris. And then she's been nominated for Saturday Night Live before, so it's not like her second ballot entry doesn't have a lot of support. And I knew that she was going to get in for The Good Place. She was practically a lock for that. And since Saturday Night Live has always been so strong in these guest categories or in the acting categories in general, I didn't see a reason why she wouldn't be able to get nominated for both.
Yes, Luca, you have unfortunately fallen out of the top 10. You impressively were top 10 the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and now you're taking a year off.
It's true. It's what happens when these nominations are so strange.
Yeah, the big one that I called was Bob Odenkirk missing for Steve Carell. Better Call Saul actually, I think we can say, underperformed with acting nominations this year, missing for Bob Odenkirk, Jonathan Banks, Rhea Seehorn, Dean Norris. But they did have Giancarlo Esposito nominated again after he showed up last year. And he's also nominated for The Mandalorian, one of 2 acting nominations for that show and one of 15 nominations for that show overall, which was not predicted to be nominated for Best Drama Series.
You know, that was a huge shock, The Mandalorian getting in for Best Drama Series. And it wasn't just like a huge surprise that made it in, but almost like also what it was at the expense of. Like, you know, you see it getting in ahead of Westworld, which has done very well with nominations the past couple of years. And you see it getting in, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, over The Morning Show, which
Yes.
like did quite well with the acting nominations, with Steve Carell sort of surprising in that Best Actor spot. When I saw these acting nominations come in, I was thinking, oh, Morning Show gonna get into the drama series category, and it was dropped for The Mandalorian. That all being said, disappointing for The Morning Show, but how great, because I think a lot of us were discounting The Mandalorian not because of the quality, but just we weren't sure whether a Star Wars series would make it into that Best Drama Series lineup.
Yeah, it's kind of the snob appeal argument.
Mm.
But we knew that tons of people had seen it, they had liked it, but is it the kind of thing that Emmy voters go for? And apparently it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Very exciting.
one that is definitely returning later this fall. So we don't really know how many shows are going to return to next year's Emmys because of the pandemic, but that's a show that could just be nominated every year from now. That's absolutely one of the most shocking inclusions this year, I would say.
Riley, why did you think Bob Odenkirk was going to miss out? How did you call that? Because he had a great season. Better Call Saul, arguably the best reviewed drama series of the lineup. I was very worried when him and when he missed out on the nomination that Better Call Saul would get snubbed in the drama series category. How did you see that, Riley?
Well, I think it's just the acting branch is on a bit of a different wavelength with that show and with a number of shows, as we see. They never cared for Silicon Valley. They didn't care for Succession last year, The Mandalorian this year, kind of. They keep nominating Bob Odenkirk, but, he hasn't won. They don't nominate Rhea Seehorn. He kind of comes in and out of SAG randomly. So it seemed like he was not really as competitive as fans of the show would like him to be. And it's just, more competitive this year. We had like 13 incumbent nominees coming back into the field based on, who had been nominated last year, who had sat out last year, who's coming over from the movie category, all that kind of stuff.
I'm outraged. I think it's a huge snub that Bob Odenkirk, Rhea Seehorn, and they were so deserving. They should have been competitive for the win this year. And Jonathan Banks actually had a really nice season and a really good episode with Bagman too. So it's sort of a bit of a head scratcher that he missed out as well.
And so I'm also curious, Riley, did you keep when we did a slugfest about the lead drama categories? You were predicting that both last year's winners, Billy Porter and Jodie Comer, were going to get snubbed. Did you hold on to that until until the prediction center closed this morning?
I held on to the Billy Porter snub, but I did eventually put Jodie Comer in, mostly just because the buzz around Big Little Lies was so toxic that I had to replace Nicole Kidman with somebody. But I am.
But you kept Sandra Oh out, correct?
No, out. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm shocked that Killing Eve got 8 nominations. Really, the only difference from last year is that this year they submitted 3 episodes in writing instead of 1. So they weren't nominated there.
Yeah, that Killing Eve's performance, again, that shocked me. I didn't think it was going to return. I thought it had a chance of being completely blanked in the acting categories, but it got all 3 actresses back in, Sandra Oh, Jodie Comer, and Fiona Shaw. It still got into drama series again. So I did not expect this because the reviews for the 3rd season weren't as great as for the first 2, but maybe it was still beloved, and maybe this could just return every single year that it's still on the air. So that was a shocking one.
All right, well, hopefully this has been a lively and quick slugfest. Let's just close with our initial winner predictions. Matt, how are you feeling about drama, comedy, and limited? And movie if you want.
Nah, I'll just focus on drama and comedy to give other people more time. Drama series, I would say with the acting, I've been thinking The Crown on prestige and just the fact that it had surprised in season 2 with a couple of wins would be very well placed to win Netflix its first drama series Emmys. My gut now, just on the morning of, is that Succession did so well with those acting awards that maybe that's going to pull out a win, but I'll definitely need more time to marinate on that. And Ozark's not out of the race either. I think we've got a really nice 3-horse race for drama series. Succession's just my initial gut reaction this morning. Comedy, I think Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It's won before the last 2 seasons. It's really in the hunt. However, I think Schitt's Creek did so well with nominations this morning that maybe has the heat. So my gut is also Schitt's Creek at the moment to win. But I think we've got a 2-horse race at the moment. I'd love to say Curb's in the mix, but Larry David and John Hamm being criminally snubbed for acting awards and it not landing any writing it's not on the ballot for writing Curb.
It was actually this year for the first time.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I missed that when I was
And they also submitted for technical direction, and they actually were nominated in that category.
There you go. But anyway, so but yeah, I'd love to say Curb's in the hunt, but and you know, you never know. It's the overdue nominee, but I'd say probably Schitt's Creek, comedy, Succession, drama. But I think these are close races, so I'm looking forward to a season of discussions, debates, and arguments.
And Charlie?
Well, I think that Succession today proved that it is the front runner for drama series. I mean, I would normally say that the Crown and Ozark are probably best positioned in the 2nd and 3rd slot, but I will say with the Crown, you did not get. I would have liked to have seen Josh O'Connor or Tobias Menzies nominated. To think of them as having a more solid shot at being the front runner. And with Ozark, I mean, talk about really shocking stubs. Tom Pelphrey and Janet McTeer both not getting in, and Ozark performed very well, but the Pelphrey and McTeer things seemed like locks, and it would have been 20 if I'm correct, it would have been 20 nominations had they both gotten in. Yeah. So I mean, that's just really weird. You just, you know, especially with Janet McTeer, she's a 2-time Oscar-nominated actress. You know, Tom Pelphrey comes from TV. He's a 2-time daytime Emmy-winning personality. So I really think Succession is very far up front. Schitt's Creek, I think, is proved, even though there were some things that I would have liked to have seen that would have made me more confident about it, like a Noah Reid nomination. or an Emily Hampshire nomination. It got in everywhere it needed to, and it did really well both above and below the line. Last year, it only got 4. It exploded with its final season with 15 nominations. It's giving me a lot of vibes from that last year of Breaking Bad. This show that, just peaked right at the right time, had a lot of help from episodes being on Netflix. And now we have people that have a lot more time to watch television, so they probably got around to seeing it. I think the snubs for Maisel, the Jane Lynch snub is so weird to me, because the Emmys love Jane Lynch, and considering she just won for that character last year in the guest category, I thought all her, Maren Hinkle, and Alex Borstein were locks. So seeing her not get in there was very surprising, and seeing them not get in for writing is also I don't think it's, of course I don't think it's disqualifying, but it's very concerning if it's not getting in for the writing nomination. And then with limited series, I don't know what can stop Watchmen at this point.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. Succession just blew up. Those acting nominations, that's really what it needed for me to put it in that front runner position, because we always knew it had the support from writers, it had the support from directors, from producers, from practically everyone. It was just the actors that hadn't gone for this show yet. All we needed to see was the support from actors, and we saw that. That's what I think. That's pretty easily the front runner. For Ozark, those 2 snubs are really egregious, especially because season 3 was so successful because of those 2 characters, because of what the characters Janet McTeer and Tom Pelphrey played. Of course, the other characters were just as important, but Tom Pelphrey's addition was so vital, and the performance was so buzzed about, that I really do not understand how he missed, especially if you look at some of the nominees in that category. So I do not feel comfortable putting it in number 1. It did very well in writing and directing, so that's something. I think The Crown is in 3rd because it could only get in 2 actors. I expected much more, but it can definitely still win because it's still a very prestigious show. It's still very well liked. It's had 2 successful seasons at the Emmys. So I definitely think it's a 3-horse race. In comedy series, I think I would probably bet on Schitt's Creek at the moment, because Maisel does have a few snubs that kind of stood out, like Jane Lynch's. But I would never underestimate Maisel, just because it still has a lot of broad appeal. And it just won its 2nd SAG Ensemble Prize. So that's a 2-horse race. And in limited series, it's Watchmen. And there's not much to say there. The other shows, I thought Unbelievable and Mrs. America would have a chance, but unfortunately they, did not get as many nominations as we had hoped.
It seems kind of like Watchmen has as many nominations as all the other limited series combined.
Practically.
Yeah. In comedy, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, it still did, really well. It got those 20 nominations, just like last year. The difference, though, is that last year we had Barry, we had Russian Doll, Fleabag, Veep, taking up all these nominations. And you'd think that with them out of contention, then The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel would have been able to pick some of them up. Like we saw Game of Thrones just explode last year when all the other dramas took the year off. So I think that's why I'm a little hesitant to predict The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, whereas Schitt's Creek really seems to have passion going for it, even if it doesn't have as much snob appeal. In drama, Succession really overperformed, got way more than it did last year. But I will say about Ozark, I had it predicted to win series and all 4 acting categories a few hours ago. So that's impossible now with no Tom Pelphrey nomination. But I will say that Ozark performed, I'd say, better than Succession in terms of non-acting categories. There seems to be a surplus of support for it, where it's picking up random things like makeup and score that are not really categories that we consider for Ozark, whereas Succession is missing categories like cinematography and sound mixing, which historically correlate to Best Drama Series wins. We saw last year how When They See Us, exploded with all those acting nominations, but Chernobyl ultimately had more support from all the other branches. So it is possible to be carried by everybody but the actors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm very uncertain about the acting winners in drama now.
I think the only one who really benefits is Julia Garner, because I always thought that if both her and McTeer were nominated, that there could have been some vote splitting, but now Julia Garner doesn't have any internal competition, and the Helena Bonham Carter has been seen as the front runner, but with the Crown's performance, I wonder if Julia Garner just pulls ahead and is the rare repeat winner on the drama side in the acting categories in the last few years.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely possible. I still think Helena Bonham Carter probably has the edge, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me one bit to see her repeat there.
Or Sarah Snook, honestly, if she also has a path, because that show just overperformed, and she has no internal competition in that category. If Succession is just going to sweep, then she could be swept up.
Yeah, one more thing I'll say about Ozark versus Succession is that Ozark this year got 3 writing nominations. Had been snubbed the last 2 years when they'd only submitted 1 episode. So that's huge growth. Whereas you look at The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which submits 2 episodes and is snubbed again. Ozark and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel are shows that are no longer supported by the critics. And usually the critics align with the writers. And the writers have gone for Ozark in a way that they have not for Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we will be back to debate these categories individually, possibly without Charlie when it comes to any category that involves What We Do in the Shadows.